is video 10. It can be found on page 24 of your packets. This is the problem of the day. Please do this on your own. You can see the letters clearly on the board here. Solve this very much like the three numbers problem or the AD to AB to AC problem, and you'll figure this out. We'll go over this tomorrow in class. Next page. Before and after models, I would like you to carefully read page 25 and 26 because those are done for you. Also, we're going to now go on to page 27. Before and after models involving percent. Change is often described using percent. We can say that a quantity increases by 25% and another decreases by 20%. This is a model to show 25% increase. So 25%, remember that that's 25 hundredths, right? So if we have 100 units, then we would add 25 more units to represent 25%. So if I have it cut into, it can be drawn like this because we know that 25% or 25 over 100 is the same thing as 1/4. That's why it's cut into 4. So if we add another 25% on, we're going to add on another 1/4 there. This is a model to show 20% decrease. And again, 20% of a decrease, 20 over 100, that's the same thing as 1/5. So we're going to take away 20 units here, or 1/5. So minus 20 units. Or here they're showing the bar cut into fifths because, again, 20 hundredths, that reduces first to 2/10. And then 2/10 reduces to 1/5. So we're cutting off or taking away, minusing that 1/5. So it's not here, right? Taking away 1/5. Next page, before and after models involving fractions. For example, an increase of $4 is shown like this. A very tiny little bit added on here, $4. The amount of money that you had before, then you add on that $4. Similarly, a decrease of $4, notice it's dot, 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 dot. That's how you show that it does not exist there. It was cut off or taken away. In some problems, the change given is relative to the original amount. For example, a quantity that is reduced to half of its amount could look like this. So you draw it as 2 bars and you take one of those bars away. Now we only have what's left is 1/2 of it is left. Next page. The two brothers problem. Carmela has 2 brothers. She gave 1/6 of her candy sticks to one of them and 2/5 of that remainder to the other. She had 12 candy sticks left. How many candy sticks did Carmela have at first? So the before model, here it is, 1 bar, we draw it. She gave 1/6 of them away, so you can see that it's now cut into 6 equal parts. Gave 1/6 away, which is why this is dotted, right? So there's minusing the 1/6. The remainder, she gave 2/5 of what was left. So here's 1/5, here's another 1/5. So she's taking this away. 2/5 of the remainder was given to another brother. And now she's left with 12. So 3 units, you can see here, these 3 units, 1, 2, 3, equals those 12 that she had left. 12 divided by 3 gives us one of those units must be 4. So she started, remember, she had 6 units here to start with. So 6 times 4 would give us 24 candy sticks at first. So let's go to the next page, page 30. After reading 19 pages, Edwin has another 172 pages to read before he finishes a book. How many pages does the book have? So the before model is, I don't know how many he has, right? I don't know. But after he finishes reading 19 pages, very little part of the total book, how many pages does the book have in total? So that's my question mark. He's read 19, and then he would have, after he read that, he has 172 left. So to get the answer very easily, we just add that 172 and the 19 to get, there must have been 191 pages in the book. And yes, we would sable that, but for now we're going to go on. Bonita spent 3/4 of her allowance on a new toy. Find Bonita's allowance. Well, 3/4, that 4 tells us here how to cut up our bar, right? So we're going to cut it into fourths. She spent 3/4 of it. So she spent, this is what she spent, 3/4 of her allowance on the new toy. Oh, and the new toy looks like it's got a price tag here of $48. So she spent $48. She spent 3 out of the 4 on the total allowance. What was her total allowance? Oh, we got to put our question mark in here. What was her total allowance? Well, if 3 of those units, right, equals the $48, the toy, then 1 of those units, 48 divided by 3 would give me 16. But we want to know how many did she have together all together. That was 4 units was her original picture. We're trying to find all of it. So 4 times 16 is what we would do here, and we would get 24, carry the 2, $64. So find Bonita's allowance. The sable that I would write is Bonita's allowance is $64, right? We're not writing the sables now just to save time. A store started selling a new gadget. On the first day, it sold 3/7 of its stock. On the second day, it sold 3/4 of the remaining stock. On the third day, it sold the remaining 56 pieces. How many pieces did the store sell on the first and the second day? On the first day, it sold 3/7. So that 7 is going to tell us how to originally draw the before. This is what we had to start with. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So on the first day, it sold 3/7, right? So this is day 1, and day 1. On the second day, it sold 3/4. Well, isn't that nice? We have 4 boxes left here. So on this second day, it sold 3 out of the 4 that it had here, right? And on the third day, it sold the remaining 56 pieces. Oh, so we know 1 unit equals 56. Oh, I'm going off the board here. 1 unit equals 56 pieces. How many pieces did the store sell on the first day? Well, we would do, because it's 3 units that first day, 3 times 56, and 3 times 6 is 18, carry that 1, 3 times 5 is 15, and 1 makes 168 on the first day. On the second day, so part B, it's exactly the same, because they also sold 3 units. So 3 times the 56 on the second day would also be 168 units. And on the third day, we figured that out was the 56. So 168 on both day 1 and day 2. And the last page here. In February, the number of tourists who visited an attraction increased by 25%. We saw that already. 25% is that 25 hundredths, which is equivalent in lowest terms to 1/4. In March, 60,000 tourists visited the attraction. This was a 40% decrease in the number of tourists compared to February. Find the number of tourists who visited the attraction in January and February. So, January, we have the 100%, which I'm going to cut into fourths because my 25% is going to help me, and I'm going to label that January. So that's one of the questions. How many people were in January? In February, it increased by a fourth, 25%. So here's my original January, which I'm now calling February, and I'm going to add on an equivalent fourth here. So this is February, which now has 5 of those fourths. So here's my increase of 25%. In March, 60,000 tourists visited the attraction. This was a 40% decrease from February. Okay, 40%. Well, I can reduce that to 4/10 fairly easily. And that equals, when I divide by 2, 2/5. Well, isn't that nice? February has 5 parts to it. So if I draw March as long as February and cut it into those same 5 parts, 60%, so a 40%, 2 of the fifths is the 40% decrease. Grab a different color here. So this would be 1/5. This would be the second fifth. This is the 40% decrease. So this is really not there. We can like take that away, which means what's left here is the 60,000 tourists that visited the attraction in March. Well, that gives me my starting point. 60,000 equals those 3 units. So 3 units equals 60,000. Well, if I divide by 3, I'm going to get 20,000. So that's 1 unit equals 20,000. So January, find the number of tourists who visited the attraction in January. So January had 4 of the units. So 4 units, 4 times 20,000, that would be 80,000. So that's the answer to part A, how many visited in January. And part B, how many visited in February? We had 5 units altogether, so 5 units would be 5 times 20, which that would be 100,000. So February was the most, which was 100,000. And I think we've answered all the questions. Okay, let's go on to the very last question here in our video. The number of students in a school increased by 15%. Well, 15%. Percent means divide by 100 or 15 out of 100. Can I reduce that to a fraction? Will that help me? They have a 5 in common, so that's equal to 3/20ths. Lowest terms. It increased by 15% to 2,300. How many students were there before the increase? How many students were there before the increase? So I know that before the increase, so they added on 15%. So this was added on. And this is what I know. So I'm labeling what I know. Now there's 2,300 students with that 15% added on. I need to know what there was for 100%, where it started with. So 115% is 2,300. What would 1 unit be? Ooh, 3/20ths. I have an idea here. That's equal, if I multiply these both by 100, I get 300 and I get 2,000. Is that all together 2,300? Ooh, that's one way I could do it. 15% is 3/20ths, and I saw that 3 and 20 were right here, right? 23. So if I multiply those both by, so this has to be, the 15% added on was 300, and the original amount was 2,000. That's one way to do it. The other way I could do it is 115% of what number? So I have 115 units. Oh, 115 units equals that 2,300. So what would 1 unit be? I would take 2,300 and divide it by 115. Oh, that's not as nice. 2,300 divided by 115. Well, that would go in there 2 times. Oh, that's not bad. 2 times 115. That's 230. Well, I'd get nothing left, but my decimal's there. So I'd have to, yes, say that it goes in there 0 times. So I would get 1 unit is 20. So if 1 unit is 20, 100 units, well, 20 times 100 is 2,000. So I could get that there were 2,000 students before the increase. So I could find it in units, but I just happened to notice that 20 and 3 thing here, right? 3 plus the 20, 23. So there's a couple ways to do that, and that's it for today's video. We'll do more of these tomorrow in class.